We are back with another wonderful episode of The Wonderful World of Randy on the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. Have you subscribed yet? Press that button. That's how you get on the in when the episodes come out, so you don't miss it. Every week another great episode. And if you didn't push that button, what's the matter you? What's the matter you? It's free. It costs you nothing. You push subscribe. You push the finger broken, you can use the other finger. Use your nose. Okay, so we're going to have a special thing today. We're over here on the sidewalk in Wildwood, and we're going to take you to visit one of my special prize collections, because Wildwood is great, but I used to work at Walt Disney World in Florida, and I was Main Street operations, and one of the things we did on Main Street, amongst all the other things we did, was we got the thrill of driving the Main Street vehicles up and down Main Street, USA, from Town Square up to and including Cinderella Castle. Got to drive the fire engine, the jitney, the horseless carriage, but the prestige of all was the Main Street omnibus, the double-decker bus. You got to drive it right down with all the guests. It's an amazing experience. You're up higher than anybody else. All the cars are kind of low. You're in the omnibus, and the omnibus has a microphone, so you get to spiel along the way. Now, if you think that's easy, let me tell you, for me, it's easy. But for anybody else driving along with the crowds on the busiest street in the world, Main Street, USA, making turns, not hitting anybody, avoiding the horse car, and continuing to make your announcements as you're going down the line, it is really a specialty. And because I did it so well, they always enjoyed sticking me on the Main Street omnibus. But, you know, that's a lot of years ago. I haven't been at Disney now for about 35 years. I've been over here on the boardwalks in New Jersey, but I carry my magic with me because it was implanted deep in my heart, because I have the original pixie dust from the original magic of the original Walt Disney World in Florida. So what, of course, you do is you get a little older and you get the opportunity, you buy your own Disney omnibuses. You don't allow them not to have you forever, so you make your deal and you get your omnibuses and you have them shipped all the way over here to Wildwood. And come on over here, we'll show you. Here they are. These are my babies. This is Main Street Omnibus 1 and Main Street Omnibus 2, and these are actual omnibuses that were used right there at Walt Disney World in Florida during my time period. Now, it's an interesting story about the Main Street omnibuses. The omnibus started in California, and it was one of those things that Bob Gurr was involved with as far as designing. He does a lot of ride vehicles for Walt Disney World. He designed a little fire engine. So they made an omnibus because they were trying to bring life to the street. You know, Main Street itself would just be another street in an amusement park if you didn't bring it to life. That's what Disney's all about, the experience. So you have to have living action going on, and what better way to do that than to have some traffic going up and down the street? So they had the trolleys being drawn by the horses, and then they came out with the little vehicles, the horseless carriage and the fire engine, but the omnibus was the crown cherry. What a brainstorm. And they were actually made, custom made by Disney, and they are made to look like a 1920s era city bus from New York. That's the styling they had. Now they're smaller because Disney uses storybook perspective on Main Street to make it look larger than it is. The buildings are actually a little smaller than real life, particularly as you stand on Town Square and you look down towards the castle. The buildings actually become a little bit smaller to have the perspective that the street is longer than it is. It's really not that long of a street, about 982 feet from Town Square to Cinderella Castle at Walt Disney World. So it looks longer because of the perspective. In Disneyland, they had their omnibuses, but when Walt Disney World in Florida opened in 1971, they had to make a new omnibus. So they made an omnibus for Disney World, and they also took one of the ones from Disneyland. And because Disneyland originally had two omnibuses. So Walt Disney World started, and they had two omnibuses also. What happened was, as the years went by and they were developing Epcot Center, which opened on October 1st of 1982, they needed something to bring life to the World Showcase, which was a big promenade around the lagoon over in the World Showcase Lagoon. So they got the brainstorm idea, it was really brilliant, to use the omnibuses from the Magic Kingdom. So they called them the World Showcase Transportation Buses, and they took the omnibuses from both the Magic Kingdom of Walt Disney World in Florida, and they took 2 buses, which they only had 2 at that time, at Disneyland in California, and they brought the buses to Florida to run the 4 buses around Epcot Center's World Showcase Lagoon. And they were really, really nice, because that's a big, long walk around there, and they would help people out, and they had their designated stops, and they were really nice. They really painted them over because they wanted them different. They didn't want them to look exactly as they did on Main Street, but it was the same buses. Now, when I started at Disney, I started in late of 1984. Main Street had no omnibus because they took them away. They gave them over to Epcot. So the Magic Kingdom and Disney World and Disneyland both had no omnibus. That's simply the way it was. They had to make that sacrifice for Epcot. In the interim, Disney created a few additional omnibuses to add to the fleet for Epcot, and then also to be able to send some of the buses back to Disneyland and Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. So first they made a couple buses in 1983, and I believe they made 2, bringing the fleet up to 6. Because they had the 2 old ones from Disneyland, the 2 old ones from Disney World, and the 2 new ones they built in 1983. These 2 buses that were made in 1983 were made right there in Central Shops at Walt Disney World in Florida. They were first sent to Epcot Center to be part of the World Showcase, but then they started sending the buses back to the Magic Kingdoms. These buses are the buses that were from first Epcot Center and then returned to the Magic Kingdom. You can see, and we're going to go over there, we're going to show you. Come on over. These buses first had their life at Epcot Center, so they were built with the Epcot insignia right there on their brass radiators. Both buses have their insignias coming from Epcot. Now, when they sent the buses back to the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, they still ran with their Epcot insignias. Interestingly enough, they didn't do anything about that. Later on, they covered this with a solid brass piece of metal, so it's just blank. I was kind of surprised with that they wouldn't make one with a castle, but I guess they weren't going to physically remove the old one. That would have been major, so they made a small plate that was just going to cover it to take away the Epcot insignia. The bus they have running at the Main Street run right now in the Magic Kingdom has it covered because it is one of the 6 buses that were made. Interestingly enough, they stopped bus service completely at Epcot Center and the World Showcases. So what happened to the 6 buses? Well, first they used them for special shows, for character cavalcades, maybe a special wedding group where you could be escorted on the bus with Mickey Mouse. So it was special event stuff that they used the omnibuses for afterwards. The omnibuses, there were 6 made. 1 now is at the Magic Kingdom of Walt Disney World. 1 is in Disneyland. What happened to the other 4? I have 2. What happened to the other 2? 1 is in a museum in, I think it's Illinois, the Vault or something like that, Auto Museum. And another one was recently purchased by an NBA basketball player who has it in his private collection in a warehouse, last I heard. So that's the 6 buses. Now, when I go back down to the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World and I visit the bus that's there, I love to go and check it out to see if they made a new one since, because it's Disney, they could make a new one, but they haven't. It's still one of the original 6 fleets. And you know how I know? It has its Epcot insignia not on the radiator, it has it on the steering wheel. Right up top here, it still has its Epcot insignia on the steering wheel. And they did not remove that over at the one at the Magic Kingdom because most people don't get to come up into the driver's seat. They sometimes allow people to sit at the passenger seat next to them, but most times they're not up in the driver's seat or the passenger seat or wouldn't even notice the situation. To me, these are my babies because not only I love everything Disney and have collected so much Disney stuff, but these were from my era in Disney. And these were the ones that I got to drive up and down Main Street USA. What a thrill. I mean, honestly, if anybody's gonna have them outside of Disney, it should be me, because I'm not only an appreciative collector, but I have the history with it. And that's very true with all the things I collect. Most of the things I've saved, I had a personal connection with. I'm the one who played those games, so I have the memories for it. And these omnibuses were special to me then. Never dreamed that I would actually have them, but here they are. People ask me all the time, will you sell me an omnibus? I guess you're going to have to wait until I die if they're not in a preservation foundation where they can live on or something along that nature, because I could never sell something that was entrusted with me like that. That's a very special thing. But, I mean, we're ready to go. I mean, you want to take a ride with me? We're going to start them up. Listen to that motor run. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, you want to take a peek under the hood? I bet you would. All right, let's see. Make sure we're not in gear here. I hear you. You don't mind, do you? Okay. Actually, it's not really complicated. They have the old flip hoods. And you have your standard internal combustion engine. It is a 6-cylinder, and it runs on propane, not gas. And Disney did that for a very special reason. They didn't want emissions and carbon monoxide for people who were walking up and down Main Street or along the World Showcase as the buses were going by to fill the air with choking gases. So they made it run on propane, so harmless water vapor comes out and nobody's the wiser, nobody cares. But the omnibuses are a simple internal combustion engine, and they run very well. They don't have air conditioning to give you low fuel mileage or anything like that, but we really do run in low gear, so we actually do use a lot of fuel. But how far are we going? From Town Square to Cinderella Castle and back again a few thousand million times. But that's inside. So where do they put the propane? Ha ha ha. They use the same system on the world-famous Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise boats use a very similar motor, hiding under a facade to make it look like it's an old-fashioned motor. And they also run on propane. Propane requires some big tanks. So at the world-famous Jungle Cruise, when you get on that boat, you are sitting on torpedoes, because underneath your seat are the gas tanks for the boat. And they got big gas tanks on those boats because they're running all day long. So the omnibus has the same situation. We actually fill our gas from the side of the seats. We have a port, and we open the magic port, and there's our filling station. Of course, we have 2 tanks. There's one on each side, and there's a filling station on each side. And although both tanks are connected in parallel, each tank has an independent turn-off. This enables me to make sure that I'm not going to run out of propane as I'm going up and down Main Street, USA, although they fill the buses all the time. That's not an issue. But around here, I don't want to get stuck on the street. There aren't too many propane filling stations around here. So one tank I turn off, and then if I ever run out of gas, I just turn on the extra tank, and I've got plenty of fuel in order to get home. This is the other bus, and this is the passenger side. We have another filling port, exactly the same as the other side. With the price of gas, you know propane's gone up as well. It's got to be way up there. Plus the fact I don't have the luxury like Walt Disney World to have a propane filling station behind the Jungle Cruise, which would also fill the omnibuses. I have to have it delivered. So just like they would come and deliver oil to your house for your oil burner, they come with a big tank on a truck, they drag their hose over, and they fill up my omnibuses whenever I call them and I need them. And then I get my bill on my credit card, and all is good in the world. As we go up the stairs to the Main Street Omnibus, you can come along with me. Well, bird's eye view. Best view of the park at the top of the omnibus. The omnibuses are miniature versions of street buses from New York in 1920. In 1920, most people weren't large size. People grew taller and wider as the years went on. That's actual fact. You know, people might not know that. People were shorter a century ago. If you were 6 foot, that was like amazing. So, I mean, I'm 6 foot. with my hat, I'm hitting the canopy on the top here. So I'm a little bit crouched down. You get some big people, it's difficult for them to get up the stairs. So the larger people typically would remain downstairs. You get the more agile people go up top. And here they are. They sit that down and go for a little ride. The holes on the top here were made for cup holders. Now, they don't allow food or drinks on the attractions at Walt Disney World. So this was probably added later when they were using for special events, possibly for weddings or anything of this nature. Now, hiding under the bench seats you see in the middle, we have some hide-your-glass windows that you could roll right down in case there's a change in the weather. So you could actually do that. That's not original to the buses because we didn't run them in inclement weather at Walt Disney World. But in other uses, possibly you would. So they are equipped with their hide-your-glass windows where you can keep everybody, nice and dry. And of course, the main level is very special because you have your typical Disney slide seats. You know your Disney slide seats? I used to love to tell people when they get into my vehicles, I'd be sure to tell them, grab a seat and slide. Slide. You know why? Because then we don't have to polish the seats later. They get to polish the seats as they slide. They slide. It really, really works. Be sure to tell your kids when they get into your vehicles, slide, slide. It saves you a lot of time, Dad. Here's a little side seat. You know what this is for? This is for the last guy in your group who couldn't get on the bus because everybody else shoved in and he's kind of left out. So we pull out the side seat so he's got a place to sit also. Otherwise, Grandpa's got to walk down Main Street, USA. Now, the omnibus is painted here white with black fenders. This is not normal for Main Street in Walt Disney World. Typically, the Main Street omnibus is green with a light cream colored, and they have little signs up on the top here advertising different attractions. Probably when I repaint the buses, which is probably coming soon, maybe a year or two, I will revert back to their original green. But I like them the way they are white because it almost symbolizes the celebration anniversary, which right now Disney's having their 50-year anniversary celebration. Can you imagine 50 years of Walt Disney World? And I was there at the start as a little kid, loving to ride all the vehicles and the attractions. And 50 years later, Walt Disney World is celebrating their anniversary. And I kind of thought to myself, maybe it would have been really interesting if I had driven one of the omnibuses from New Jersey down to Walt Disney World. Can you see it now? Randy in the omnibus going down I-95 at 20 miles an hour. Arriving in Orlando and arriving back home at Walt Disney World, and maybe, just maybe, they would have opened the magic gates and allowed the dear omnibuses to take a special trip, a cameo around the world showcases at Epcot Center and at the Magic Kingdom of Walt Disney World. Wouldn't that have been fabulous? Well, the 50-year anniversary, it's still going on, but I don't know if I can do that. I'm working all summer long here, and that's a long trip. Plus the fact, you know what? There aren't any propane stations along I-95, and I don't think I would get too far. I'd have to have a propane truck following me. Hey, we're ready to go. And yes, the omnibuses have seat belts. And now I'm ready. Yes, we even have our Main Street audio because I'm still living on Main Street, driving around. People say that pixie dust and magic lives at the Magic Kingdom, and it really, really does. But us old timers who had the original pixie dust, we carry the magic beyond the main gate. We do it everywhere across the world. There's many of us, and that magic we spread like a little seed, and we spread that magic in our own way, each in our own way. In my way, one of my ways is through my omnibuses. We have our typical clutch because it is a manual transmission. Step on your clutch. Here is your transmission. You have first, second, third, fourth, and pull it all the way over for reverse. So I'm going to typically start out in second because first is really, really, really low. Even on Main Street, we used to drive in second gear. Now on the horseless carriage, the jitney, the fire engine, it was mandatory you drove in first gear. but they had a different gear ratio. The bus is much slower, so second gear is fine unless I really, really want to crawl. Our option switches here, most operators, they don't even know what they are. We just pull them on because we know we're going to turn them all on. But this is for the dome light that is right above our head. You see the dome light? Where is he? There he is. Dome light's on. And they push in and out. This is the step light at the back for the steps going up, so you have a little bit of illumination, only necessary at night. This is for wipers. I don't want to run my wipers because they're probably dry. I haven't run it in a while and I have to scratch my window. And this is my start button. And over here, we have your lights and your parking lights. Of course, you have a couple buttons here. Now, interestingly enough, I did a video when I was down at the Magic Kingdom this year, and I noticed they had a big ugly box mounted on the surface of the dashboard with a big fat red and green button. And it almost looked to me like it was starting and stopping some taped audio because they weren't giving a spiel anymore. But it wasn't the case. They replaced the two smaller buttons. The one does the horn and the other does a bell. And I guess for whatever reason, they didn't want to replace them with the same buttons, so they mounted a big box and those buttons were doing the same thing. Actually, you very rarely use those buttons because most people hear you coming if you are on the microphone up and down Main Street and you're talking to everybody about the Main Street Emporium over on the left, or the Camera Center over on the right, the Hospitality House, the Penny Arcade, all these things as you're speaking, your voice is on a public address system, filling the air all around you for everyone to hear. And as people are walking on Main Street, they hear you speaking, you don't have to blow a horn. But if I was going to blow a horn, I would do it this way. I'm doing it with my foot. I'm not doing it over here trying to push a button because I need my hands on the wheel. One hand is holding a microphone, the other hand's holding the wheel. Which hand's going to press the button? My foot is. We also have the bell. I can press the bell with my foot. Now, the only reason the buttons are on the top is if I'm in stop position, I'm holding down my clutch, and people are standing in front of me, I'm not moving, I'm not using the handrails, my foot is busy, that's when I would use the buttons on the dashboard. Complicated stuff, isn't it? So, into gear we go. Give it a little, ooh, feel the power of those engines. Got to take off the safety brake. We don't want the safety brake on. Everybody please sit back because we're going to be underway on the omnibus. Forget, folks, a little later on this evening at 9 o'clock and again at 11 o'clock, it's the Main Street Electrical Parade right down Main Street, USA, followed by Fantasy in the Sky fireworks. Green light. Making our way down Wildwood Avenue. This is a Center Avenue right here in Wildwood, New Jersey, because we're going to be approaching Main Street Wildwood. That's known as Pacific Avenue. The focal point, the heart and soul of Wildwood is approaching on your right-hand side. You'll notice I named my building the Emporium, figuring it right after the Emporium on Main Street because it's using the same yellow brick and red ribbon signs as you would find at the Emporium on Walt Disney World's Main Street. Here we are at fabulous Randyland. It is just like you would find at Walt Disney World's Main Street with the Magic Emporium and Red Ribbon signs, but inside you find all those wonderful, amazing artifacts of amusement history right inside, in addition to penny arcade games from my era and some penny arcade games right from the penny arcade at Main Street's Penny Arcade at Walt Disney World. That used to say F.W. Woolworths Company. When I got the building, the insignia sign letters were gone. They weren't allowed to leave them, so I had the red ribbon. So I had custom-made gold lettering to spell out Randyland. To fill in the sign on either side, because Randyland is shorter in letters than F.W. Woolworths and Company 5 and 10, I had some golden flippers put on either side because it's about games, fun. It's about me, my life, and the amusement business. So right now, Main Street and all of this, my Good Time Emporium, Randyland, it's in danger. It's in danger of being destroyed, as is all of downtown and all of Pacific Avenue in Wildwood. The city has seen fit to create a redevelopment plan which gives them the power to acquire, they love the word acquire, property and knock it down, to sell it to developers to build condos. Pacific Avenue is an entertainment district. Not only commercial, it's commercial entertainment. It was a heart of Wildwood for many, many years and could be again and would be if it was allowed to be so. But instead, as we pull up a little further to the next corner, we're going to see what their future plans are for Main Street in Wildwood. Everybody sit right back. We're underway. Take a look at this. This pile of rubble 2 days ago was the oldest house in all of Wildwood. Victorian construction. It was sold because of the redevelopment plan. They're actively tearing it down and they're going to turn it into condos. Look at this, how sad this is. That, my friends, unfortunately, is the fate of Pacific Avenue. Main Street of Wildwood is Pacific Avenue, and they want to do that for 1.25 miles from that end all the way down to the other end. Hi guys!
Wildwood. I'm as big a fan as you as I am at Disney.
Thank you.
We love Disney. You look perfect in there, buddy. You look perfect.
We are back in our parking position, and we hope you enjoyed the ride because this was another great episode of the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. Now, did you press that subscribe button? You know who you are. You're watching these things without subscribing. You're missing out. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us get the word out to other people. So please press the subscribe and tell other people to do the same thing. We need your support. We're greatly appreciative to it. This is how we try to preserve these things for everyone, because my time is limited. I don't know how long I have, but I'll do it as long as I can, and we need your help. So thanks for joining us right here. The Omnibus thanks you. Did you have a good time, Omnibus? Oh, love you, baby. They're so sweet. They love me so much. And usually Blackie the cat will come out and now sit as the watch cat for the rest of the day to keep an eye on the omnibuses. He's very fierce. You know, if you get near Blackie, you better watch out. He's really sweet. He's a pussy cat. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.